I sat there literally thinking I was perfect. And the moment I thought I was perfect, the universe hit me upside the head with a 2x4. All of my pain and trauma that I had stuffed down growing up into my early teens came rushing up. I've always kind of touched on this. And then over the last 3 years, I've just been kind of letting it out slowly to a point where I've decided, fuck it, I'm going to be vulnerable and just share what's really going on with me.
I want to start with this question. So, like I mentioned, you've kind of gone, it seems like, from very head focused. Here's a model for you. Here's the system of business that you should be in. In the last 5 years or so, to very heart focused. What's changed?
Yeah, very interesting. Wow, that's a good question to start with. I'm trying to think about how to say it in the shortest possible way. And so
we got time, man. We got time.
Yeah. So humor me for 2 minutes. I'm going to do my best to put this in a nutshell. So I have created 5 pieces of content in the world. I'm a person who is obsessed about helping entrepreneurs. And so very quickly, the first piece is called Entrepreneurial Leap for an entrepreneur in the making. Anybody that thinks they're an entrepreneur, shows them how to become one and how to increase their odds of success. Second piece of content is Rocket Fuel, that visionary integrator concept you alluded to. Third piece of content is EOS and the book Traction, helping that entrepreneur run a better business. The fourth piece of content is the EOS Life, helping that entrepreneur live their ideal life. And then the fifth piece of content is called the 10 Disciplines. Those 5 pieces of content I like to describe as the mountain every entrepreneur climbs from their inception to the day they sell their business. And as they get to the top of that mountain, I describe that as helping them succeed in every aspect, by every measurement, in their outer world. Well, all of a sudden, I'm now venturing into their inner world, and that's what the 10 Disciplines is all about. And that's obviously what we're going to talk about today. And so what happens with all of that content is I just simply teach what I needed the most in my life. So I'm typically the example, and I go through these experiences. I then teach them to entrepreneurs, and it helps them, and it transforms and changes their lives. Well, I sold EOS worldwide 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago now. And upon selling the business, about 2 years after selling it, so we're going back about 3 to 4 years. Okay, I won't get the timing perfect, but I got to a point where I truly had succeeded by every outer metric. And there I was 2 years after selling. And I'm so embarrassed to share this, but I share it anyway. And that at that moment, I sat there literally thinking I was perfect. And the moment I thought I was perfect, the universe hit me upside the head with a 2x4. And all of my pain and trauma that I had stuffed down growing up into my early teens came rushing up. And all I can describe it as is an awakening that forced me to go inside and look inside and start to do inner work. I've always kind of touched on this, but this is where I really went deep. And so in the last 3 to 4 years, I have drudged up all of my drama. I have shed all of my shit, as I like to say, and I am experiencing more peace in my life in the last 2, 3, 4 years than I have in the previous 50. So that was the pinging of my soul that led me to, that's what happened for me, and start to share that with entrepreneurs. And then over the last 3 years, I've just been kind of letting it out slowly to a point where I've decided, fuck it, I'm going to be vulnerable and just share what's really going on with me. And as I share it, it just helps other driven entrepreneurs shed their shit, find more peace, and succeed both in the outer world as well as the inner world.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard you say more recently, let your freak flag fly. That's an interesting concept. I love the phrasing.
Yeah.
But it drudges up the question, is it possible, maybe we're touching on a bit of the discoveries here, but is it possible to have peace when you're driven the way that most people that are probably listening to this podcast, the way that I know still are, that I am? Like, there's something I fear with all of my soul. I really do, not achieving whatever version of me I'm supposed to be, not maximizing my potential. I fear that way more than dying early or anything. But on the flip of that, I'll drive by here in the DR, a little surf town, and there's people that just are like, hang loose, man. I'm like, man, I wish I could just chill, wake up at 9:30, go surfing for a little bit, make $8 an hour and have a simple life. But I know that's not me either. So how do I find, is it possible to have that peace while still having this drive?
So believe it or not, it is. Okay. And let me just explain that, because there's two things I'm teaching to the world right now in this topic. The first I call 3 discoveries. The second I call 10 disciplines. The 3 discoveries are the kind of the wake up call to help you understand what's possible. The 10 disciplines are how to do it. And right now, my co-author and I, Rob Dubay, and partner in this business, we just put the finishing touches on this book this is all going into a book. But the reason I bring that up is the third discovery, and I call them the 3 discoveries for freeing your true self. The third discovery verbatim is, it is possible to be driven and have peace. So I've proven to myself it is possible. And I am a driven entrepreneur. And I thought you were going to ask a different question, because the debate that comes up is, do you have the entrepreneur climb the mountain, get to the top, and then heal? Or do you heal the entrepreneur and then have him climb the mountain? And
that was my next question.
Yeah, and what's terrifying about that is I spent a lifetime fearing peace, because I thought if I found peace, it would zap me of all of my drive. And all I would want to do is sit on a mountain and meditate all day. I thought I would want to live in a hut. And it's just the opposite. It's literally 10 times the energy, because the driven part of us is DNA. That is not changing. And so you actually get more drive. And what I've learned is the drive actually comes from more of an inside out drive, almost like coming from your soul and your being, as opposed to the outside in drive. That is the truth of what's driving most entrepreneurs, because it's these outside factors. It's ego, it's fear. You're doing this to try and prove something to either yourself or someone else. And that will motivate us driven entrepreneurs. But man, there is a whole nother level of motivation when you shed all that shit and come from the inside out. And so long answer to your question, but the answer is yes, it is possible to be driven and have peace.
Can we unpack the question you thought I was going to ask was going to be my next question? The way I was going to phrase it was, what's up, Tribe listeners? I want to talk about our sponsor for today's episode, Gobundance, the tribe for healthy, wealthy, generous people who choose to live epic lives. It's a tribe I've been a part of for 5 years now, and I keep coming back year after year because of the quality of the connections and interactions that I get and the accountability that I get toward the goals that I'm looking to achieve. Gobundance has meant everything to me. So I'm really, really proud to sit here on the Tribe of Millionaires podcast and tell you a little bit about Gobundance. Here's the thing. Why do you live where you live? Think about it. Why do you live in the neighborhood you live in, or the apartment building you live in, or wherever it might be? Usually people move into a community because of the quality of the neighbors and all of the amenities that are available to them. And then they go about using those amenities and leveraging that community to the best of their ability for growth. They make connections with neighbors, lifelong friendships, things that serve them. We want that for ourselves, for our wives or husbands, and our children. That's what Gobundance is at the next level. Imagine if you're a man moving into a community of other millionaire men that are driven toward being the best versions of themselves as fathers, as husbands, in their health, in their relationships, in their contribution, you name it. That's what Gobundance provides. For me, it's been everything. I get with my Gobundance brothers on a weekly basis and I tell them, this is where I'm trying to go. Things I can't share with the regular folks in my life, my friends, my family that I've known forever. They only know me for who I've been. Gobundance guys, they know me only for who I'm becoming. And when I deviate, when I go off course from being that guy, from taking action toward being that guy, that's when they step in, that's when they hold me accountable, and that's what accelerates my growth. Go to Gobundance.com right now and apply. If you're a millionaire and a man, Gobundance.com. If you're a woman and a millionaire, GobundanceWomen.com. And if you're not quite a millionaire, go to GobundanceEmerge.com and you join me in the community that I've created in partnership with Gobundance to get yourself to that place of being what we call a whole life millionaire. Gobundance.com. You can start there, see everything that we have to offer. It's an incredible community. I can't wait for you to be a part of it. Now, back to the show. Do you have to pursue peace only after you have, proven to yourself that you can execute on your drive? But unpack that a little bit. So if I'm a 30-year-old entrepreneur, you're saying, or are you saying, is there anything that you can give advice on here? And then I want to get into one other question, going back into what we talked about a moment ago, that, hey, look, along this path, you can have this balance of peace. Like, can you get a little granular on that? Is it a schedule thing? Hey, in a week, plan 40% peace, 60% drive, or plan for your drive at certain points? Or is it, there's going to be periods of bursts of drive and you need to follow that with bursts of peace, or so on and so forth? Can you unpack that and give it maybe a little bit of granular, maybe tactical thoughts on the younger entrepreneur who doesn't need to get to a point where they're, kind of through their business cycle before they finally search for peace? What does that look like for them potentially?
Yes, great. Such a great question. And I mean, that question we could go 2 hours on. So with that said, I would ask you to do two things, okay? Number one, please hold me to task on fully answering your question, because I'm going to start out with a big picture context, and then I do want to give you some specifics, and just hold me to task to do that. But also I'm going to let you manage the clock, because we could literally go 2 hours just on this question.
Good. I love this. Yeah.
So here, the first thing I want to share is this great debate I alluded to. And that, again, is, do you heal the entrepreneur after they climb the mountain or before they climb the mountain? And so the question is that possible to heal the entrepreneur before they climb the mountain? And if you do they still want to climb the mountain? So cut to the chase, you ultimately learn there is no mountain. The whole thing's just a journey. Okay, that's the aha moment. There's no mountain to climb, man. There's like literally no time. There's so much you can accomplish. It's all just a journey. So the point, though, is the truth is, all I can tell you is at 52 years old, for me, I had my wake-up call. I went inside and started healing myself. And I'm still on this journey. I mean, I'm sharing with you right now, just real time, what I'm going through and where I am. So I'm still on this journey. I don't know how close to fully being healed or peaceful I am, but feels pretty good. I feel a lot of peace, enjoy a lot of bliss. But the point is, if you would have come to me at 35 years old and presented to me what I'm presenting to you, I'm not so sure I would listen. So here's the thing that's important to hear. I can't speak from experience as to whether you can heal the entrepreneur and they'll still want to climb the, quote, mountain. But I was, if you haven't had Doug Brackman on your podcast, you might consider it. He wrote a book called Driven, and it's a masterpiece. And this guy's great. And I'm shouting him from the rooftops. But I was on his podcast, and he and I had this debate. And he has me convinced that you absolutely can heal the entrepreneur first. And it's the point that I made, because not only will you not zap them of their drive, it will increase their drive. The drive never goes away for us with Driven DNA. And Doug Brackman is a PhD. He's a doctor. He's a psychologist. This is what he does. And he just talks about the science behind it. This is scientific for why we're so darn driven. So there's the contextual answer.
Yeah.
The specifics are, and this might be the thing that takes us into some of the 10 disciplines, but I'm going to do my best to give you like 1, 2, or 3 specifics. And this is where I want you to hold me to task, so that I'm giving your audience some tangibles and truly answering your question. So one of the 10 disciplines is to be still. And these disciplines, half of them are very tangible, half of them are not. And the be still is not entirely tangible, but the point about being still is, and what we recommend, is that you take 30 minutes of silence every day. And whether that's meditation, prayer, journaling, contemplation, everybody has their own form. I meditate. But if you start a practice of doing that, what you do is you create space. You create an opening. If you just go as a driven entrepreneur, as I did from age 15 to 50, you never have time to slow down. And so another powerful quote from Doug Brackman, and I realized this is what happened to me at 52, is he said, the trauma comes up when we are safe. And so he works with a lot of Navy SEALs. And what he talked about is the Navy SEAL doesn't experience the trauma in the war. They experience it when they're home, sitting on the couch, watching TV, because they're safe. And when I realized what happened for me at 52, I was safe. I thought I was perfect. I'm sitting there in my house, and then the universe goes, all right, we're going to show you. So the trauma came up at that point in time. So the point in this long answer is, for that 35-year-old or the 30-year-old you said, I can't remember the age you said, that is a driven entrepreneur and going hard right now, I know how hard it is, but just take 30 minutes a day. Start with 10, go to 15, then 20, then 30, and just be still. And what's going to happen is all the stuff is going to come up. You're going to start to experience both silence, peace, stillness, but then also stuff will come up. And when the stuff comes up, that's the magic, because that's all the stuff that we stuff down, that I stuffed down from age 3, 7, 10, 12, whatever it was. And as it comes up and you process it, and you can process it on your own, but you can also get it professionally handled through a therapist or something like that. But you can process it. You start to feel these things. They come up, they process, and what immediately follows that is bliss, is peace. And so you just start to get these little glimpses. And man, when you get one glimpse, you just want another one and another one and another one. The other thing that I would suggest, I just want to try to give you a second one really quick, and then let's see where we are on this question, is I would probably say take time off. So now all of the disciplines together, they're really magic. And understand there's also working in those disciplines. So this is not all about kumbaya and don't do anything, but take time off. The urging there is, in one of the disciplines, we have you figure out what your perfect work container is. Outside of that, what we urge you to do in this discipline is take time off. Figure out your perfect number of days off, because that's also the magic that starts to create space so that you're not going all the time. That's going to increase your energy, your creativity, your clarity. You're going to rejuvenate more. And that starts to create more opening, more space for you to start to experience some peace. So there's a couple of thoughts for you.
I like that. And yeah, you're right. When I go through the 10 disciplines of managing and maximizing your energy, to be very clear on exactly what these disciplines are about, they stack. First 5 you have to kind of have before you step on number 6, right? Like the first 5 really lead into 6 and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. A question that's coming up for me is kind of like a leading indicator. And maybe this is your experience. So if I'm, it doesn't matter the age, but a driven entrepreneur, and I'm listening to you talk about this balance with peace, and you had this, hey, I made it. And then, like you said, I've had that so many times. The universe smacks you in the face. I love the concept of the quiet per day, 30 minutes a day, in order to let things come up and deal with it. What were some leading indicators that people can maybe hear that you had, if you reflect back, that show that you were out of balance on this scale? In other words, addictions, habits, things you were doing, maybe things that you were doing, people can insert themselves in. Was there anything, if you look back at, 10, 12, 13 year ago, that you were doing to avoid the peace and stay in the drive because you just didn't want to deal with whatever trauma, at least subconsciously? Does that question make sense?
Oh, total sense. Absolutely. And I'm going to try and give you 2 or 3 examples, but let me zoom out one more time, and then I'm going to give you
Zoom
2 or
out.
3 examples, because I'm sitting here and I'm a teacher at heart. Okay. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of all your listeners out there. And I just want to create a little context so they're kind of following the bouncing ball. So real high level, I just want to quickly say what the 3 discoveries are and what the 10 disciplines are. And if your listener wants to jot them down so they're looking at them in front of them or whatever, but very quickly, the 3 discoveries to free your true self are: discovery number 1, I am driven. Just understanding you're driven. Number 2, we're not going to go into each one unless you want to, but number 2 is that all decisions are made out of love or fear. And then number 3 discovery is that it is possible to be driven and have peace. We already mentioned that one. The 10 disciplines that you implement in your life to experience all of that is: number 1, 10-year thinking. Number 2, take time off. Number 3, know thyself. Number 4, be still. Number 5, know your 100%. That's your work container. Number 6, say no, ... often. Number 7, don't do $25 an hour work. Number 8, prepare every night. Number 9, put everything in one place. Number 10, be humble. So I just want them to understand the context, understand that some are tangible, some are not tangible. But to your question that you asked, there were 2 things that came to me that are examples of, kind of how I was keeping my pain and trauma buried down. And so one example is I can remember my first real glimpse of peace, and it was when my kids were born. And so when my daughter was first born, I felt a level of bliss and joy and peace like I'd never experienced before. and it lasted an hour. And then it scared the shit out of me. And I stuffed it so far down because I literally thought it was going to zap me of everything. So it was that fear, because what happened to me at 15 after all of my trauma is I built this tough guy persona, drinking, fighting, working. This is what I did. And I did that for literally 35 straight years after that. Well, that glimpse came, let's see, she was born, I think I was 25 when she was born. And that glimpse of peace literally flew in the face of this thing that I created that I thought was going to serve me so well my whole life that I thought it was just going to destroy it all and it would all come crashing down. So I stuffed it back down and went right back to being a tough guy and a drinker and a fighter and just continued the course. And then the same thing happened with my son was born. So for what that's worth, I don't know if that answers the question. Then I'll share another story, and that is where my wife threw me a 30th surprise birthday party. And so just discipline number 5 discipline number 3 is know thyself. At this 30th surprise birthday party, there were 100 people there. They yell surprise. I look around the room and I realize that there were 6 factions of my life in the room. Okay. So there were my business partners, there were my employees, there were my high school friends, there were my new friends, there was my family, there was my wife's family. And I realized that I was a different person for every single faction. And I look around the room in these 100 sets of eyeballs and I go, holy fuck, who am I going to be today? So what I realized is I molded myself, bent myself to kind of appease other people, be something I wasn't for other people. So here I am. Just imagine the energy drain that I had to experience, literally changing who I was for whatever faction that was. And it was that day that I said, I am going to be myself going forward. So that was a big aha moment. And then the only other thought that comes to mind is, and this may not be the pain you're looking for. So again, I want you to hold me to task on this, but I also remember a meditation. I started meditating at 30, just trying it, but it was very sporadic for 20 years. I would barely call it meditating, but there were a couple of times that I went so deep and just felt that deep, deep place that you go, known as the void, lots of different terms for it, but just this incredible peace. I had also then remembered that experience when I was young. It happened once at 9 years old and once at 12 years old. So there is this place you can go. And so in experiencing that briefly at 30, that was another example of there is this place that doesn't feel like pain, because what I realized at 52 when I started to shed all of this, I looked back and I thought it was normal to go through life feeling pain, feeling shame, trying to always prove that I'm enough, trying to, comparing myself to, I thought that was normal. I thought everybody lived their life that way. And it's just not true, or at least you don't have to live your life that way. So I don't know if that gets at what you're asking. Hopefully
It
it
does.
does.
So
Not be the task.
what I heard was some of the things that were symptoms of what you've learned after this slap from the universe 4 years ago were the ego's leading the way. So like you said, you had to show up as a certain type of person to these 6 different factions of your friends at your 30-year-old birthday party, 30-year-old surprise birthday party.
Yeah.
And that need, it's funny, the leading indicator that you are likely not going down the path of being your true self and finding that peace is the fact that you have this need to get back to work. I know that, man, that I told you, I moved down here to the DR, and in the first 6 months, especially, you wouldn't have known I live up next to white sand beaches and clear blue water. It was like, I got to make sure this stuff doesn't go down. So I need to work my ass off and isolate my kids. I'll take cool pictures, but that's it. Those were the memories. And my son said at one point, daddy just goes to the beach to take pictures. I'm like, oof. Gut punch, right? So that was a leading indicator for you. You're diving into your work, numbing essentially any trauma that you might have had in order to go that path. You've talked about DNA a couple of times, and this might be a bit of a detour, and we'll come back. But I guess the core of the question is, and I think I've heard you opine on this, but maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Can entrepreneurs be born or bred? I'm sorry, bred, or are they born?
Yeah. So now you're getting into that first piece of content I created called Entrepreneurial Leap. Okay. And in that book, it's a book. It's called Entrepreneurial Leap, but it's also content. We have an academy. And so this is for anybody that thinks they're an entrepreneur or has just taken their entrepreneurial leap. And the goal of that book is to save lives. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is help. We've got this rush of young people that all want to be entrepreneurs. It's like the hot new thing. Everybody wants to be one. Well, sadly, not everyone is cut out to be one. And so what I do is I make it very clear as to what an entrepreneur is and isn't. And there's an assessment they can take, they get a result. But long and the short of it, you are born with it. You are either born with it or you are not. And if you're not, it's not right for you. Don't do it, because I'm trying to save you 10 years of hell. So there are very specific traits that an entrepreneur has. Again, we are born with them, and it's all about just discovering whether they're in you or not. And if they're not, it's okay. Just go do something else. And I know that breaks hearts, but I'm truly trying to save lives, because I've seen too many situations where these poor people will start a business and just crash and burn because they just don't have what it takes. And so that's what that book is all about. So I believe you're born with it. Now, here's the thing. I hope I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, that means that 8 billion people on this planet can be entrepreneurs. And with all due love and respect, it ain't going to happen. It ain't possible. It ain't true. And that's just my humble 2 cents. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I've learned after 30 years of being in this game.
Got it. I wanted to go there then to come back here. So you have for the 10 disciplines, essentially a true self-assessment or true self-assessment that you could take. I took it and it was a 58. I don't know what that, I mean, I have an idea of what that means. I think you've said you think 100 is achievable, meaning to be completely, truly you. Where right now do you score? And specifically, what are you working on?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So let me respond to what you said about your 58. Your 58 is better than most, so kudos. And what
Thank
this
you.
assessment is doing is it is helping you understand. Again, it's incorporating the 3 discoveries, the 10 disciplines into 20 questions that really look at how much of your true self are you being. And so it's, for most people, it's considerably lower than 58. So you're better than most. I'm at, I think, 90 or 92. So I'm up there. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah.
And what I am working on most is probably fear. So what's happening for me is, so discovery number 2 is all decisions are made out of love or fear. And when I made this discovery, it was like depressing. Okay. And I'll try and explain this really fast. But if you really understand the premise of love or fear based decisions, and you become aware of how often you're making a decision based on love or fear, you start to see. And what I learned and realized is that I was making most of my decisions in life out of fear. And then what I do is then I take the reader 4 levels deep. And I also give this talk for free once a month. We offer that online. But we take them 4 levels deep into the root of this, because once you understand it's a fear-based decision, that means your ego is online, and your ego and your mind are driving your decisions. And so thoughts, emotions, feelings, decisions, they're all coming from love or fear. When you understand it's your ego online, weighing it through all these external filters, you understand that your ego has you in a prison. So now we take you down a level to understand that your true self is in there behind that prison. It's in there. You're in there. You want to come out. Call it your soul, your essence, your being. We call it your true self. It wants to come out. Next level down is that we are all pure energy. We human beings are pure energy, and we either burn very bright or we don't. The ones that don't, it's just blocked energy. It's being in that prison. So then we take you down another level to show you how to unblock that energy. And it's a very specific process for doing it. And so when you unblock the energy then expands, you burn brighter, and you start to free yourself. And then the furthest level down is where you're just being aware. So just be aware of if you have a feeling, emotion, thought, decision coming up from fear or love. Love is soul, your heart. Fear is ego, mind. And so for me, I realized, wow, most of my decisions are from fear. I've come a long way now in the last 4 years, but there's still fear. And for me, I am really starting to put myself out there, be more vulnerable. I want to fully let my freak flag fly. And each time I think I am, I learn there's another level. And each level, each time I open up more and really put myself out there and say what I believe needs to be said, I get a little fearful, so I get afraid that whatever it is, to be, ridiculed, whatever it is. But then I get past it. So then I just process what that is. And it always goes back to something that happened in the past. And so that's probably what I'm working on most, is just letting go of that fear and just letting it fly and saying what needs to be said and what I believe needs to be said. And the more I do this, the more it just keeps helping more and more and more of these driven entrepreneurs do it for themselves. And then one last little thing on that note is, we've talked about at the beginning of this podcast, outer world, inner world. So again, most of us driven entrepreneurs successful in the outer world, inner world, a little messy in there. And so what I urge every driven entrepreneur is to start to tell your inner story. And so, that's what I started doing 4 years ago. But to tell your inner story, find somebody who you love and trust in your life. Don't shout it from the rooftops like I'm doing. I am doing it for a very specific reason to help people. So you don't have to do that. But find somebody you love, you trust in your life, one person that you can tell your inner story. Tell them exactly what's going on inside of there. And for me, what happens when I did it the first time, they didn't leave me. They still love me. My biggest fear, they're going to find out that I'm a human being. I'm screwed up. I'm a mess, whatever. But just start to tell your inner story, not to throw up your trauma on people, not to be a victim, but to release it, to release that shit from you. I call it shedding your shit, and just let it go. And then again, you rise up to another level, shine brighter, energy's burning brighter. But so for me, it's really that fear piece at a whole nother level as I kind of go to a whole nother level.
I feel like there's levels of fear. There's fear of judgment. There's fear of failure. There's fear of, not actualizing, as I talked about before. When you make decisions out of fear, is there a theme to what you're afraid of?
Yeah, so I love that you're asking it, because that's the perfect question to ask next. I know what it's not, but that's what I'm trying to figure out is exactly what it is, because it's not fear of failure anymore. It used to be fear of failure. I went through fear of failure. I went through fear of success. I mean, I think I've gone through them all. So I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. Judgment is certainly one in there. That is absolutely one of them. I think there's a couple of them in there. So there's no question. And when I thought I got past all the judgment, because that was a really big one that came up for me that I realized weighed on me heavily. And it was as much worrying about how other people were judging me as self-judgment. And I don't know which one was worse, quite frankly. And I still don't know which one is worse, but judgment's a biggie in there. And I think there might be one or two other things in there that are coming up. But that's definitely one of the biggies. And it's anyways, I'll stop there, but dig deeper if you want.
Well, what's interesting, this is just something that came to me from doing. That's what I love about, I talked to you at the top. I love podcasting. And what I love about it is, you get to meet cool people and all that stuff. But one of the things is just being able to extract trends, lessons, things you hear over and over again. Yes, but what's beneath that? What you just said, I remember listening to a Paralympic athlete speak about fear, and it was fear of judgment. That was the fear. And there was somebody else that had done something significant, like akin to an Olympic gold medalist. Same thing, fear of judgment. And then I look at myself, and I have fear of judgment. I would always say that my fear of judgment starts with external, and then it goes to internal. So I'm more fearful of other people's thoughts of me, and then after that, I have my own. So I sort of subordinate myself to other people in that regard. The trend I heard with some of these peak performers, people that have achieved things at high levels, whatever it might be, is that it's the reverse. They're much tougher on themselves, their fear of their own judgment, and then externally. Does that resonate with you? Does that make sense?
Well, that's the point I'm making, because that's what I think it is. I think it has more to do with my self-judgment.
Your own.
Whatever I have created in my mind, I think it's more self-judgment than the external judgment anymore, because I've gone through a lot of that. By telling my inner story to so many people, I'm getting pretty darn good at dealing with letting go external judgment and letting it flow through me. So I think it is an internal judgment. I'm pretty convinced that that's what it is. And for what it's worth, literally just in the last 3 weeks, I go down these rabbit holes, and I'm on this judgment rabbit hole because I now see so clearly how self-judgment and fear of judgment keeps you in a prison, and probably the worst prison of all. I'm really like, this might be my doozy to get past, because for me at least, and I don't even know that I can put it in words because I'm just starting to get so clear about it, but it's even beyond the prison, which sucks. It's even worse than the prison because it's shutting me down from completely opening myself up, and as much receiving from the world what the world has to give, i.e. love, but also giving to the world what is possible to give, i.e. love. And so it's like, why would you want to do that to yourself? Why would I want to do that to myself? But for me, it's still so heavy. And then what's funny is with these things, I get through them and get clear on them, and then they seem so simple when I look back. But right now, I'm just in this swirl of trying to understand it and see how it just keeps you trapped, man, and it holds you back from that next level. It holds me back from that next level. So anyways, all I can do is speak from experience in my journey right now. And what's important to say, and I know you've said it in the intro, but and this is what I want your audience to hear is, I'm a pretty successful guy. It's been a pretty good run. I sold a couple of million books. I got 200,000 companies running on a system I created. I know my stuff, but we're all human beings at the end of the day. And I love that you reference these highly successful people that struggle with these things. We are all human beings, man. We are all the same, regardless of what we do as a profession. And so this is an opportunity for all of us to just shed our shits, be human, connect, and oh, baby, what's possible?
I love that. I love that. The love and fear thing, I want to dissect this for a second. So when I think about me right now, I'm probably distracting myself and trying to determine like what in this moment for me am I doing out of fear and out of love, like the moment by moment decisions. Out of love, if I'm being, it's an instant reaction to it. It's platforming somebody that I respect, meaning giving you just one. I know you're on a million of them, but just one more platform to speak your truth, to teach, which is what you're blessed to do, and everything. Getting on and having this interview, having this discussion, listening intently, writing down notes. That's all love-based decisions that I'm making. The fear-based decisions that I'm making right now are, this guy's a big deal. 2 million books sold, 200,000 entrepreneurs using it. So, don't ask a bad question. Don't ask a dumb question. Be podcast guy right now. There's a persona that I know is right here in front of me. Like I can't move him. He's standing there. As much as I may have chipped away at him and gotten more comfortable here with speaking to folks like you who have had levels of success, it's still there. The ideal for me is, man, if I come away with having impressed somebody significant, so good for me, right? So the question I want to turn to you, me 58, you 92, right now, if you're thinking about you, what of your true self am I not getting? What are you doing out of fear in this moment, in this podcast? Anything that you can think of, anything that just sort of like the energy just popped into your head and this is what it is. You may not even know what it means, but did something pop up when I asked you that?
Yeah, well, I'll share two things. First one's going to be funny because first was my OCD, which is watching the little squiggly line on this technology, and your squiggly line keeps moving and my squiggly line isn't. And I'm thinking, is this fucking thing recording? Or
it is. We're good.
So that's going on first. Number two, I'm telling you what, man, I'm just feeling very in the flow right now. So there's really nothing I'm just letting it fly right now.
Good. So I'm getting all of you. That's great.
I think you are. But again, the ego's a powerful thing. It could have me trapped in this prison lying to myself, but I'm feeling pretty in the flow right now.
Good. So this leads me to something you just mentioned a moment ago, and it was a bit of an epiphany for me. There's a lot of discussion. I don't know if you have these same discussions with friends, other entrepreneurs, or whatever it might be. This season that we're in, literally September 2023, it feels like, just generally speaking, it's heavy. There's a lot of resistance, economic news shifts, more of a scarcity mindset. Maybe it's so it seems to be permeating. It's almost like magnets facing away from each other versus toward in the moment that we're in right now. First off, let me start with this. Do you sense that? Do you get that same feedback from others? Are we entering, or are we in a climate where a lot of entrepreneurs are in that same space of, a lot more issues seem to be popping up? The energy seems to be more heavy or negative, or is that not your experience?
So am I seeing that with entrepreneurs? So I'm going to give you a 25-year answer of working intimately with entrepreneurs and their leadership teams and solving all their problems and helping them grow their businesses. And if you were a fly on the wall and couldn't hear the words coming out of their mouth, but just watched their body language, it's the same as 25 years ago. No business has ever been easy to run. They're all tough. Human beings are excruciating to lead and manage. But the problems are always different. But there's always problems. So from that standpoint, I don't see anything different in any of my sessions with the current climate, because there's these issues, there's those issues. There were the COVID issues, there were the 08-09 recession issues, there was the dot-com crash issue. I mean, it's just always something. So I would say no from that standpoint. If we look outside of that and look at the things that are causing a lot of the issues, I mean, it's a weird time right now. This is just me giving my humble opinion, looking at the world and just watching how polarized we are. And I don't want to get on a, kick here, but I personally can't remember such a polarized environment, such extremes, political extremes, COVID vaccine beliefs, the extremes there. It seems like everyone is highly sensitive. And Dan Sullivan calls it the age of rage right now. So I don't know if there's something really big brewing, where we're on the cusp of some massive change. But that's different. But let's go back inside the business now, what the entrepreneur is dealing with. Yes, that's causing some stuff inside the business, but there's always been stuff, and it's not just that stuff. So it isn't any harder or easier than it was 20 years ago from what I watch and observe with my clients. And certainly I've been a business owner through that whole stretch as well.
Well, then the 10 disciplines come at a good time then. I mean, I know I feel, and again, it may be self-imposed. It may be, I'm allowing news cycles to influence, like, you know what, because this happened. Yeah, it just feels heavy. And then when I talk to somebody else that says something similar, it becomes an echo chamber. Like, oh, all right, everybody's experiencing these tough times. What you're talking about with the 10 disciplines really is, again, it's managing energy. So things like taking time off, knowing yourself, saying no, so on and so forth. It almost feels like it becomes more necessary, whether the cycle of the economy or the environment that we're in is driving it, or if it's just something that you're feeling as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, or whatever. It feels like it's even more important than to dive into something like the 10 disciplines. Would you say?
100%. And I'm trying not to be biased on that. And I would say it for two reasons. Certainly, number one, for all the reasons you said, and it's going to manage and maximize your energy, and it's going to help you be even more successful in your outer world. But it's about what it does for your inner world, creating that space and that platform and that time for stuff to come up. And so I would suggest that the 3 discoveries are as important as those 10 disciplines, because I think this is the time. I just feel like we're waking up, we're shedding our stuff. We're realizing we don't have to walk around in pain. And when I watch these entrepreneurs start to shed their stuff, find more peace, come from the inside out, become more creative, more in tune, more energetic, it makes an impact. It makes an impact on everyone around them. So then all of a sudden, all of their employees, clients, vendors, and the ripple effect that has is incredible. The higher we vibrate as we shed our stuff, the more we help other people vibrate. And so look at that, how that lifts everybody up. So yeah, now is the time. And it feels like these kind of conversations, I mean, even 5 years ago, you couldn't have these conversations with entrepreneurs. So they're starting to listen. Now, the whole new age world has been screaming at us for the last 30 years about this, and probably long before that. But entrepreneurs are starting to hear the message and acknowledge trauma and realize it can be shed, and realize the potential and capability that they have once that is done. It's like when you start to see that, with the entrepreneurial mind that always wants to create value, more and more value, and realize that that's going to help create more and more value. How do you not get motivated, excited, and want to at least put your toe in that water?
If I were interviewing you 6 years ago versus today, what would be different? How would this interview be different?
we'd be doing an EOS podcast, which I don't do EOS podcasts. My co-authors do those, but we'd be talking about Entrepreneurial Leap is what we'd be doing. We'd be talking about all outer world stuff, because that's what I was focused on up until 4 years ago. And it'd be a great conversation, and your listeners would be getting a ton out of it, because it would be all about helping them to continue to build what they're building, make more money, make a bigger impact. It'd be good stuff. Don't get me wrong. But now I'm on this new mission, and 60 to 80% of my time is on this new mission.
More specifically,
yeah,
regardless of the topic,
yeah,
what in your energy, what in your cadence, what in your language might be different 6 years ago versus now, given that you're letting your freak flag fly a little bit more?
So I'm going to try and answer that. Keep digging, because I'm not sure I'm quite hearing the question, but I'd be a hell of a lot more intense. I'd be drinking coffee right now because I'd be amping myself up. Right now I'm drinking herbal tea. So, my central nervous system would be just completely amped right now, which is where now I'm enjoying it being considerably more peaceful. It still starts to amp up, but now I can feel it when it amps up. I'd definitely be operating from some fear, so I'd be making some fear-based decisions like we already talked about.
Sure.
So, but dig a little deeper if I'm not hitting.
Well, no, that hits it. That hits it. I mean, in my mind, like, are there words you use now that you wouldn't then? But that's less relevant. It really leads into the bigger question, which is 6 years ago, 7 years ago, you're not focused on the 10 disciplines for managing and maximizing energy, right? Like you said, you're more tactical on the external stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're climbing that, this is ironic that I'm putting it this way, but if you're climbing that mountain of the 10 disciplines, that's probably not the right way to put it, but you get my point. If you're climbing that mountain of the 10 disciplines, is there a trudge phase 1 through 3? Is there a momentum phase? And is there a I'm rolling down the other side of the hill phase? In other words, if somebody's going to apply the 10 disciplines, where does it start to break? Because again, it's not like choose one of these 10. That's not what I read them as. It's start with 1, go to 10. Yeah. Where along that way should somebody, if they're going to dive into this book, a lot of people are big, I'll call it disciples of yours. Everything you put into the world has worked for them. So now they're going to take these 10 disciplines, me included, and apply them. What advice would you give? Where does it get hard? Where does it get a little easier? Where do you gain traction? No pun intended. Within those 10 disciplines? Or is it's an uphill to 10, you got to stay in it until you hit it, and then you'll roll down the other side?
Boy, that's such a good question. You're good at coming up with questions. I like the way you dig. So here's the best way I can describe that. First of all, absolutely yes, we urge you to apply all 10 to your life because they have a magnifying effect. So when you implement 1, you're going to get that. But when you implement 2, you're going to get that plus. So they have a magnifying effect. So please intend to apply all 10 to your life. But it is also a smorgasbord where if you just choose 1, you will get a result from 1. And so what I would suggest to you is, we offer 3 things. There's a free ebook you can download from the website until our new book comes out in March. So just please go download the free ebook and you can read them from the book. We then offer an online self-study course. And then we offer group coaching where we take you through in a cohort of about 15 people. And so looking at the results there, I would suggest you are going to get high gain quickly. So, just download that book, start implementing them. And even if you just implement 2 or 3, the ones that are kind of the lowest hanging fruit for you, you're going to get instant impact. But what I would suggest is we find that those first 2, 3, 4 that you were drawn to, you get that quick impact from those. because those are the ones that appealed to you the most. And it's always different for everyone in terms of which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you're immediately drawn to, and then get to work on the other. And I think the drudge comes from embracing the rest that you aren't so drawn to, that aren't so natural for you. But on the other side of that drudge is where the magic aha voila moment happens, because now all 10 are in your life and you're experiencing that full magnifying effect. So read the ebook or do the self study, get in the group coaching, master the low hanging fruit for you, get into the rest of them, go through that little drudge there, and then boom, should take off for you.
Your results are proven in the past. That was an important question for me because, as I mentioned, and I love your answer on the time that we're in. Like, there's always challenges. That's the perspective you've been able to gain over 25 years working with entrepreneurs. If you were like you said, zoom out. There's always something that seems overwhelming. There's always a mountain to climb or whatever. Even though, but now I do hear from a lot of people, and this is where that question came from. I do hear from a lot of people that they feel it more now. And again, maybe it's news cycle. I just pulled this up. This is a friend of mine. I'm in a massive funk, not even sure why, but I hope this is a part of growth. I'll do my best to embrace the struggle. That sort of sums up what I hear from a lot of people. So when I think about this episode, your message, and specifically the 10 disciplines, I think it's such an appropriate timing. I'm a little spiritual in this regard. I think everything happens in the time that it does for a reason. This interaction, this episode, this discussion is happening exactly at the right time for me. And with love, I hope that decision helps other people that are feeling the way this person is. So yeah, I appreciate that answer, because I think that's what you're saying essentially is like, take a hit, go 1, 2, and 3. They're easy, but take that hit, get that little endorphin rush, that little high, if you will, and allow that to maybe pull you out of what may feel like an economic funk or an environmental funk or a state of the nation or the polarization era that we're in right now. So I don't know. That's what I took from that answer. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and if I may too, I just want to say something quick with that particular gentleman you used as an example. Being in that period where you're in a funk, we all go through that. So here's the greatest lesson I learned about the funk, okay? Because in my 20s and 30s, the funk was excruciating. I would go through these tremendous highs and lows. And there's a great book called The Hypomanic Edge. You don't have to all run out and read it, but what it describes is we driven people. We have, it's DNA. We have these bursts of brilliance and then these downtimes, and we crash and burn. And to the degree you can even those out, the better. But they used to be extreme for me in my 20s and 30s, a lot less now, but I still go through them. And so the point in that is the funky time ends, the funky period ends. And what would happen for me is I'd be like, oh, I'm in a funk. And if it lasted more than an hour, I'm thinking, oh, life's over. This is it. This is the rest of my life. I'm going to live my life in a funk. And what I've come to learn is when it's funky time, just bask in the funk. It's going to pass. And I believe it's just part of the process. It's part of growth. And sometimes meditating is a great thing to do during the funk, but just relish the funk, sit in it, bask in it, let it process. Because then what I've learned 100% of the time, you come out of that funk more energetic, energized, creative, clear. So you come out of it is the point. So we beat the hell out of ourselves in that funky period thinking that it's over. And it's just not the case. It's just absolutely not the case in my experience, for what that's worth for that one person that I had to respond to.
Relish the funk. That's the 6th content stream coming out of Gino Wickman. I can't wait for it.
Discipline 11.
Perfect. Where can people heard me talk about this self-assessment for true self? The book 10 Disciplines, the ebook 10 Disciplines for managing and maximizing your energy. Where can people find this? What links do you want to put out there? All of that.
Awesome. Well, let's see. Let's start with the assessment. Okay, free assessment on the website. So the epicenter of all things 10 Disciplines is the10disciplines.com. You can spell out 10 or the number 10. So there you will find that free assessment. Please take it. You get a sense of where you are in your journey of freeing your true self. Also, that's where you'll find that free ebook. So please download that and get started. If you want to go deeper and get help, we offer a self-study course. And then we also offer group coaching where you go through it in a cohort with about 15 people and really do a deep dive with your peers and learn together. And then also the book, the big book with the 3 discoveries and the 10 disciplines, is coming out in March. I'm sure you can pre-order it soon. That'll be in all bookstores. But those are all the wonderful resources that will hopefully help make a huge impact out there.
Truly appreciate you coming on. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure, Jamie. Thank you.